Hi guys. So I want to go over the homework from last night. And this is actually sadly my third time trying to record this video because I was signed in as like my normal email address instead of my school email address, so it wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do. So my math homework actually is already done and I'm just gonna go through it. I do need you to have a red pen and a highlighter or a highlighter. Same way we do in class. Just don't use your pencil. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Just fix it. It is what it is. It's just homework. The homework from last night was all about rounding, so it really shouldn't have been too big of a deal. Number one was this guy goes to the grocery store and he buys four different turkeys. See if I can go through this. Um, I asked you, well, I gave you the weights of all four turkeys, and I said, Ryan rounds the weights of each turkey to the nearest tenth, which turkey does not round to 4 4/10. But it should be turkey too, because if they want you to round, sorry, my hands are annoying, to the nearest tenth, if you go ahead and circle the digit that's already in the tenths place, you're underlining the digit in the hundredths place. But the 0 would leave my 4 alone. The 4 would leave the 4 alone. This 4 leaves me alone. The only thing that would bump me up is this 8. This 8 would bump my 4 up to a 5. So it's because that's the only one that's different. It should just be turkey 2. If you have to fix it, just fix it. It is what it is. Number 2 was saying some kid goes to the movies and he spends, what does he spend? $24.48. I asked you how much he spent, rounded to the nearest whole dollar, but the whole dollar is just the whole number. Just remember that when you round to the nearest whole number, you circle everything that's in front of the decimal point. So here I'm circling 24. This 4 would leave me alone, so it should just be 24. If you have the zeros and the place values that come after it, it doesn't make a difference. Guys, we could add 100 zeros here. Wouldn't make a difference. That number is still 24. Number 3, excuse me, wanted me to round to the nearest hundredths place. So I circled the digit in the hundredths place. But this 4 leaves me alone, so that 6 should stay a 6. The only thing I need you to realize is that everything in front of the circle stays. So the 5 stays, the 8 stays, the 2 stays, the decimal stays in the exact same spot, the 5 stays, and because this number was a 4, my 6 stays a 6. If you have a 0 there, that's fine. If you don't, doesn't really make a difference. I did realize when I was going through this that there is a typo for number 4 because I asked you which decimal number would round if we were rounding to the nearest whole number, but neither one of these are whole numbers. Each one of these things is rounded to the nearest hundredth because this says 5 and 87 hundredths. This says 5 and 88 hundredths. So we're just going to change that. If you skip this one, not a big deal. It's my fault. Just go through it with me and mark what you need to mark. If it wants me, to round to the nearest hundredth, I circled the digit that's already in the hundredths place. But this 1 leaves my 7 alone. So this would be 5 and 87 hundredths. So I just have it marked. The rest of them should be 5 and 88 hundredths because this 9 would bump my 7 up. This 7 would bump my 7 up. And this 5 would also bump the 7 up. And if they get bumped up, they get bumped up to 8s. So the first one should be 5 and 87 hundredths, but the last 3 in the table should be 5 and 88 hundredths. The very last question from the math homework was talking about Usain Bolt, him running a 100-meter dash, but then they took his number and asked you 3 true or false questions. So 5A said 9 and 683 thousandths rounded to the nearest tenth is 9 and 6/10. But I said that that was false because if it wants me to round to the nearest tenth, I'm going to circle the digit in the tenth place. That 8 is going to bump my 6 up to a 7, and that doesn't match what it says. So I said it's false. 5B I said was true because it wanted me to round to the nearest hundredth, so I circled the digit in the hundredths place. This is just a 3, so that 3 would go ahead and it would leave my 8 alone, and that matches exactly what I need, so I said it's true. The last thing I said is false because it says if I rounded his number to the nearest whole number, I would round to 9. But anytime we round to the nearest whole number, we circle everything in front of the decimal point. But that 6 would bump my 9 up to a 10, and then those things wouldn't match. So I say it's false. I know I went through that really quickly, but it doesn't really make a difference. We have already finished rounding. I think we should be fine there. If there was anything on the math homework that you need to fix or correct, then just do that. Not a big deal. If you can, though, number 4, your whole table had to be right on your own to give yourself a point for that. For number 5, you have to have all 3 of those true-false questions correct to give yourself a point for that. But if you can let me know out of 5 how many you were able to get right on your own for homework, make sure your name goes on it. Just go put it in the math tray. You can pause me, and then when you get back, unpause me because I want to look at science. All right, you guys should have done 5. The question for 5 says, which would be the best way for her to perform his experiment? So typo, but that's okay. Kenya wanted to find out which of her toy cars, the Corvette or the Mustang, would roll downhill faster. She made a ramp by putting several books under one end of a board so that the board was slanted. They're even showing it to you. Which would be the best way for her to perform her experiment? Let's see. Roll each car down the ramp separately 5 times and estimate. No. I know that A is not my answer because in science we never estimate, so not it. Roll both cars down the ramp together 1 time and see which one gets to the bottom first. Not terrible. I'm not crazy about the 1 time, only because we really should have repeated trials. If you can circle 1 time and show repeated trials on your paper, I'm not crazy about that one. Roll each car down the ramp separately 1 time and time them with the second hand on his watch, her watch. I still don't like the 1 time thing. Same thing. Not crazy about that. So let's see. Roll both cars down the ramp together 5 times. This one I like better because there's repeated trials. And record which one gets to the bottom first each time. I feel like this is my best option. Because this one actually does show her doing it multiple times. Repeated trials. We need repeated trials. If you don't have D as your answer for number 1, will you please circle D? Will you please circle 5 times and show that this is my best option because she's using repeated trials? Number 2 says, let's see. Well, the question says, which of the following explains why Sirius can be seen without a telescope? Okay. Leo is studying the stars. Another typo. And he learns that Bernard's star is the 3rd closest star to Earth, although it cannot be seen without a telescope. He also knows that the brightest star in the nighttime sky, Sirius, is much farther away but can be seen by the naked eye. That just means without a telescope, if you want to write that down. If you can see something with your naked eye, that means you don't need help. You can see it just by looking at it. Which of the following explains why Sirius can be seen without a telescope? Well, if we can see it, what do we know about stars? The closer they are to Earth, the brighter they're going to be. So Bernard's star is much larger and hotter than Sirius? I don't know, maybe, could be, doesn't really make a difference. Sirius is much larger and hotter, can't read, than Bernard's star. All stars are the same size. I know that's absolutely not true because I know that the sun is just average, so not everything's the same. There are stars larger and smaller than the sun. All stars are the same temperature, so Sirius must be larger than Bernard's star. I don't like that they're all the same temperature because the sun is average, so there are stars that are bigger and brighter, but let's see what let's reread here. He's studying the stars and he learns that Bernard's star is the 3rd closest star to Earth, although it cannot be seen without a telescope. Okay. He also knows that the brightest star in the nighttime sky, Sirius, is much farther away, okay, but can be seen without a telescope. So let's see. Much larger and hotter. Well, which one can he see? Let me read this again. Okay, so Sirius he can see without the telescope. So let's see. Sirius is much larger and hotter than Bernard's star. Maybe. They're definitely not all the same size. They're not all the same temperature. I think I'm going to have to go with B, only because Bernard's star is the one that is closer to Earth, but it can't see it without a telescope. So because he can't see without a telescope, I can't imagine that it's burning hotter than the other one that we can see. Because he can see Sirius, even though it's farther away, I would have to assume that this would be my best answer choice here. I don't like C and I don't like D. I'm going to go with B. I think that's my best choice. If you don't have it, just circle it. Oh, I like this question a lot. Jacob found a piece of broken glass. He picked it up and he made the following observations. He decided that the glass had no color, so it was clear. The glass could make scratches on wood. The glass had a bumpy surface, and when he dropped it, it broke. Okay. He thinks the glass is a solid, and most of his observations could only apply to a solid. Which one of his observations could apply to a solid, a liquid, or a gas? I like this question because people panic, so they just pick something. But if you think about it, it's really not that bad of a question. He made an observation that the glass broke when he dropped it. They want to know what could apply to a solid, a liquid, or a gas. But a liquid can just be something as simple as water, and gas is just like air. So you're not going to break water and you're not going to break air. So this one doesn't work for all three. His third observation said that it had a bumpy surface, but water doesn't have a bumpy surface. Air doesn't have a bumpy surface. When you actually think about what it's asking you, it's not really that bad of a question at all. Make scratches on wood. I don't think water is scratching wood. I don't think that air is scratching wood. But water is clear and air is clear and this piece of broken glass bottle is clear. So I would say that the only thing that would work for a solid, a liquid, or a gas would be A. I'm going to put that water. Please write this down. Glass. No. Oh yeah, glass. And air could all be clear. If you don't have something, please write that down. You can pause me if you need to pause me, and then unpause me when you're ready. 4 says which structure is responsible for transporting water and food in a plant, but transporting means that it's going to be moving up and down wherever it needs to go. But the roots are like the straws, okay? They suck up water. They're like the dirty little fingers that anchor the plant into the ground. The only thing that works and moves things up and down is the stem because it's like an elevator and it moves the food and the nutrients wherever it needs to go. If you don't have stem already chosen, I need you to circle it, please. All right, as far as science goes, if you successfully answer the question correct on your own, I want you to go through and when it shows you your standards, I want you to give yourself a check mark next to whatever points you have earned. Your math homework should have your name on it. You should have told me how many you got out of 5. It should be in the math tray. For right now, after you get done telling me or showing yourself really what points you have, please put this into your homework folder.